welcome to another episode of Hidden Gems. With us in person today is Lei.
Hello.
You might have remembered her from a lot of the other product use case videos that she's done on Covalent. How are you doing today, Lei?
I'm great. How are you?
Pretty good. Very excited about today's topic because we're going to be talking about our new Address Activity Endpoint that tells you where and when a wallet was active across over 150 blockchains that we support. Lei, would you be able to tell us a little bit more about this and the challenges that it solves?
Yes, completely. This endpoint is designed to cater to a gap, basically, that we see in the industry today, which is that a lot of endpoints are not really built for the multi-chain use case. Endpoints are built for querying one chain at a time, and sometimes that can be really tedious, especially with users now transacting on a lot of different chains, and developers need solutions that allow them to easily access that data instead of making costly or time-consuming individual API calls. So basically, if I am building a wallet for a user that might have activity on like 6 chains, they either need to manually add which chains they're active on, or I need to, as a developer, make a balances request or transactions request on every single chain just to check where they're active. There's nothing that really provides me that blueprint right out of the box. And that's what the Address Activity Endpoint does. And that's because Covalent's in a position where we index 150 plus blockchains, which is the leading amount in Web3, basically. A lot of these are application-specific chains, or they're smaller chains that don't really have visibility. So we're in a unique position with our architecture to be able to query all of those chains in the backend and just return to the developer when and where a wallet was active. And that changes the flow for the way that they can build applications.
So why build this and not a multi-chain balances endpoint or multi-chain transactions?
Yeah, so you can see that some data companies have started building multi-chain endpoints like that, which basically, instead of getting all of your token balances on just Ethereum, you would get it on all of the chains that a user's active on. One, a lot of the time you still have to select which chains you want to return data from. So that doesn't solve the problem of knowing where a wallet's active. And two, it's quite an expensive process for a data provider to do that, because you're actually potentially returning like hundreds of items in the response. And if a developer's not necessarily looking to actually get all of the balances, but maybe they just want to know where they are, then that can be a costly API call where a lot of the data is wasted. So we chose to build a wallet activity endpoint that basically, it's a step before that, and it's a quick call that you can do before you go and make the other calls to get the necessary data. And that way, nothing's really wasted, and you save that time cost and the actual tangible money cost of paying for those requests.
Okay, that's very interesting. But what does that mean for developers now? And does this change the way that wallets and other applications are built?
Yeah, so basically, it's that blueprint effect. So instead of that manual process of developers going through and checking chains for activity and potentially making like 10x more API calls because they need to get all of the balances, all of the transactions, all of the DEX activity, whatever it is, this just shows them when and where their users are. So it's a lot more helpful for developers. One, because it actually helps you like understand your user base as well. But two, because you can build applications that have a much better user experience. So instead of requiring them to keep track of their funds, which is a challenging kind of feat and ends up in a lot of lost funds because people might not know that they've even received transfers or airdrops on certain chains, or they might not know the last time they were active on a chain. So yeah, for developers, this means the step one is calling the Address Activity Endpoint. And then from there, once you know when and where they are, you can decide which data to fetch after that.
Okay, so now that we've talked about what it looks like for a developer, what about an end user?
Yeah, so the goal is to make Web3 a lot more approachable and, to gear towards adoption. Applications do need quite a bit of a redesign, I think. The experience in Web3 is often clunky, and as mentioned, it requires users to keep track of a lot of information, not only their credentials, their private keys, their wallet addresses, all of that stuff that's required to be safe and secure, but they also might miss out on opportunities. They might not know where their funds are. They might not know that they have interactions on different chains. And so there's a lot of onus on the user that kind of makes it not a very fun experience. And if we can actually remove that by building in this logic to applications where a developer's first priority is to make the end user more comfortable and have a better experience. And that can look like already importing all of their tokens, already knowing where they have NFTs, identifying opportunities for them. Then it's just a better experience overall, and it welcomes more people into the space, and it's less that they have to keep track of.
That's true. I've actually heard from a lot of people that I've talked to who are new or have tried to get into it that it's very overwhelming for them. So even having this solution is great. So now going over all of the information, it would be amazing if you could actually show us what that looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a look. Okay, so basically you go to the API reference, as is the case with every endpoint that we want to try out. You get here once you've either logged into your dashboard or you've signed up for an API key, and you can do that from the main website. So the address activity endpoint is under the base section. So you're going to go down to base. These are all of the building block endpoints. So basically, they don't fit into other categories, but they're just useful for everyday activities. And the endpoint itself is called Get Cross-Chain Activity for Address. So what you do here, you click on this endpoint, and then as you can see, the path parameter that you want to put in is the wallet address in question. This also, as do all of our other endpoints, resolves ENS, RNS, unstoppable domains, and lens handles as well, which is pretty cool. So in this case, I'll just do an example, demo.eth, and you can select the query parameter to include test nets if you're worried about that. If you're not, a lot of end users only care about the main nets where they have funds or something. So I'm just going to ignore it for now. And then here we go. So basically, once I put in that address, you can see in the window here the items. So I can see each chain that this address is active on, and I'll actually just open this up in another window so we can look at the response. Here we go. So as I can see, there are 10 items, which it showed me here. They're all collapsible. And then I'm looking at Ethereum, Polygon, BSC. These are typically the top 3. Avalanche, a couple others. And for each chain, you can see the chain name. This is how we have it in Covalent's database. You can see the chain ID. You can see the label, so you can show the user that they're active on Ethereum or Ethereum mainnet. And you can see last seen at. So this is the timestamp that tells you when they were there or when their last transaction was or whatever it is. So this is 2023, August 28th, and all of the times are in UTC. But yeah, this is super useful to give users like a snapshot of their activity. And some of these last seen at might not have been a transaction they initiated. This could be funds that were transferred into their wallet, for instance. So it's useful for them to potentially claim funds on those other chains as well. And that's pretty much it. But basically what I would do is take this response, and then if I want to fetch their balances on every single chain, I go back, I go to the get token balances endpoint. If I wanted to get their transactions or their NFTs on other chains, I can query all of these other endpoints, and now I know where to look.
So thank you so much for walking us through all of that. It's great for people to be able to see that breakdown. If they wanted to find more information, we'll just provide that in the link or the description below. And are there any other last parting thoughts that you have? Or would you like to say to anybody?
Yeah, stay tuned for more endpoints like this. We've got a lot that are kind of in the testing ground right now. This is one that we also asked for feedback on before we released it to the public. So there's a couple other labs endpoints that will be released shortly. And if you try it out and you have any feedback, be sure to let us know. You can do that in Discord. So yeah.
Yeah, and if you wanted to sign up for the API, how can people do that?
You can go to our main website, so covalenthq.com. You can also sign up from other places like on the docs or on the API reference. It's free to sign up for an API key. Our free tier is really generous for experimenting, but if you need higher rate limits or you want faster responses, you can check out our premium tier, or if you need like millions of API calls, you can check out our customizable tier as well.
Okay, perfect. We'll also include that below. But yeah, if you have any other questions or if you'd like to see any specific endpoints or walkthroughs or like guides that Lei has created, please let us know in the comments below. And yeah, stay tuned for the next product use case video.
Thanks.
Excited. Bye guys.
Bye.